today, on the first episode of EnduroJoe Talks to the Affinity Community, we have the one and only Guillermo here. Ta-da! There's Guillermo. Fantastic. Ooh, yeah. I also am drinking something as well. In my koozie that says "Drinks well with others." Yay!
Excellent.
So, Guillermo is a dude I met probably last year, the first time at Feast of Blades. From there, we kind of chatted about this little thing that happened this year called Rumble on Route 66, kind of a Dire States branding, and then from there, it kind of kicked off. So Guillermo's not only a highly regarded Infinity player / community member, he's also got a beautiful family, lives down in New Mexico. Yeah, that's all I got for you, man. Anything else you want to add?
That'll work, Joe. That'll work.
That'll work. Okay, fantastic. All right, dude. So here we go. The first question I want to know is, when did you start wargaming? How long ago was it?
2006. I'd always known that there were such things as miniatures, but I had only ever seen people use them for hobby. And I took a trip down to Peru to hike the Inca Trail, and when I was down there, they had people on the side of the road selling chess sets, and the chess sets were Conquistadors versus Inca Runners. And it was all handcrafted, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do one myself. And I decided when I get back to the States, and I had just became recently employed full-time and was making money, which was kind of cool. So I decided when I get back to the States, I'm going to make my little. I asked, there was a coworker who had a picture of something 40K. I had no idea what it was at the time, and I asked him, oh, where do you get the miniatures at? And he pointed me to a shop. I went into the shop, and I explained to the guy my purpose of buying minis, and I needed a set of minis to accomplish a chess set. And he said, well, your best option is probably 40K battle boxes. So I was looking at the 40K battle boxes, and then of course I started asking him, well, do people play games with this? And he said yes. And of course, as a good salesman, he said, hey, you should try playing the game. And I said, all right, well, which one do people play the most of? And he said 40K. Naturally, this guy said, you don't want to play 40K, you want to play something else. And at the time there was confrontation, and I was worried because I didn't know anybody. So I said, I'll just play 40K, and I bought the minis. And he had made a joke, and he said, you have to have painted minis. So I bought the battle box with the intent of building up a chess set, and was putting together a Necron force, and was having fun painting it. And then went back to the store, talked to him. He said, you need to get this for an army, and he kept on joking, saying, you have to have a fully painted army. So I spent a month and a half painting up a 2,000-point Necron army, and then I showed up to the store and was hanging out for a couple hours asking people, hey, can someone show me how to play a game? Some guy finally agreed, and I pulled out my army, and he was freaking out. He was like, this is your first game? And I said, yeah. And he said, and you have a fully painted army? And I said, yes. And he called everyone over and like, get a load of this Yahoo who's got a fully painted 40K army. Like, where did he come from?
Nice.
I kind of had to throw that. That's the beginning of gaming, and it was also probably why I got really heavy into painting, because I painted the better part of 80 miniatures, albeit Necrons with dry brushing. But so I got into 40K and immediately got bored with it. And finally, the guy who was trying to sell me on Confrontation got me into Confrontation. And then I got into that, and I had a lot more fun at the skirmish level. That was back in mid-2006, right after the World Cup.
Nice. So is it fair to say that that's when your amazing painting abilities started, was in 2006 as well?
Yeah, there was a so for the next couple of weeks when I was playing 40K, there was a couple of guys that were, you know, they would like, hey, you should check out this guy. He's got a fully painted army. He's probably the only guy around that has a fully painted army that he plays with. And then there was this guy, Frank, living in Michigan, who was the local master painter who never competes or anything like that. And they said, hey, you should talk to Frank. And so I went and introduced myself, and he was probably, to this day, he is probably still the best painter I have ever met, albeit he spends 200 hours on a mini. And I just got talking to him, and he has a very strange technique that I could never mimic. And So immediately right off the bat, entering into the tabletop wargaming scene, there was a world-class painter that I was aspiring to right off the bat, and yeah, that's pretty much how that started. And then when I switched over to confrontation, the whole dry brushing technique didn't work out. At the time, I was also putting together a chaos army, and it was still pretty simple. But then when I transitioned over to confrontation and saw how, started looking at blogs and other people painting, and saw that there's a whole other world of not just playing and assembling, but of painting, and it just had my interest. And so immediately right off the bat, I knew that I wanted to try to be a good painter.
I believe you have succeeded. I think you have won a few things. I know at Feast of Blades you won for the painting, and you got a Grex airbrush from it, which is fantastic.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. You know what else is cool about that? I won it with Kodali, and then Ethan Pearson went up to Feast this year and won it with came in third with Kodali. So it's 2 years in a row. Feast of Blades is sending an Infinity player to Adepticon on a Kodali miniature.
That's fantastic. It's fantastic.
I think that's awesome as hell, man.
So we're talking about Infinity. When did the kind of move from Confrontation 40K to Infinity happen?
So 2006, when I got into 40K, and I had mentioned I got immediately bored with it, and then I got into Confrontation and immediately loved it. And then towards the end of 2000, this huge community, probably maybe 20 players playing Confrontation, and then they were all bummed out because they were in the know. They had been following the game for a long time, and they found out that there was news that said they're switching to pre-painted plastic. They're going to anybody that knows anything about tabletop games knows the news of the Confrontation. So back in 2006, when everyone was finding out the Confrontation was going to die, on the Confrontation forums, you were not allowed to talk about any other games, and someone had made a comment and said, you know, screw this game, I'm done with it. I found something, quote-unquote, infinitely better. And then I PM'd him and asked him, what game are you talking about? And he sent me a link of some minis. And that was the Corvus Belly website. And they didn't really have a whole lot of minis, but the first mini I saw was in January 2007. It was the Kawadij, the Hawk Islam super jump that nobody likes, thinks it's overtaught. That was the first mini I saw, and I fell in love with it. I was like, I want that. And then at this time, when I was ditching 40K and Confrontation was done, I was gobbling up any skirmish game you can think of: Alchemy, Anima Tactics, Malifaux, Heavy Gear Blitz, just any game you can think of. And then at the same time, so whenever I did that, I'd buy a starter box, and I bought the Hakazan starter box and the Kawadij. And then I decided, well, in order to demo this, I have to have a second army. I got the Nomad starter because I like their remotes. And then in early 2007, I demoed the game with the guy with the quick start rules, and oh man, it was horrible. We were doing it all wrong. But I immediately saw right away that there's something different about this game that I like that a lot of the other skirmish games don't have, and I kept on trying to push it. And for like a year, it was maybe like every couple of months, someone, hey, let's try this out. And eventually, Tim Cummings, the guy that I first talked to that tried to convince me to get into Confrontation, he decided to pick up Ariadne, and then he and I were playing on a weekly basis towards the end of 2007. And then little by little, some of the old guys from the Confrontation group that we had started jumping in, and then we got a nice nucleus of 6 or 8 guys. And by the end of 2007, I had pretty much stopped kind of playing a lot of other games. I played War Machine because there was a big crowd and it was kind of boring to only play like 1 or 2 guys repeatedly. So 2007, got some models, laid very dormant, painted them. By the end of 2007, we had ramped up to a nice core, and by the beginning of 2008, we were full-fledged into Infinity in the Detroit, Michigan area.
Oh shit! So yeah, so kind of the same thing. You painted it. You wanted to play with painted stuff. It seems like all the time.
Not so much these days, man.
Well, there's a few things going on, right? So out of the range, I know one thing that I wanted to do was I'm going to try and out logo Magno, and I quickly realized that that's impossible to do.
You mean on the ITS?
Yes, for the ITS forums, I was like, man, he's got a lot of logos. I bet I can do that. Nope, can't come close. So, with that said, out of this year, because I mean, let's talk about it a little bit. You won the previous 2 years ITS. You've been number one. So out of all of that, what's probably been there? There's two questions here. There's what's probably the funnest army to play that you enjoy playing, and then the second one is what's your most utilized, or maybe there's a better word for it. What army can you utilize the best to accomplish ITS missions this year?
Oh, okay. So anybody that knows me pretty decently has seen what Dan Barnaby, aka Crusher, calls the Book of Grudges. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and I keep a record of everything that I do. Engineer by trade, so I like to work with data. I've kept data on all the games I've played and seen that there's some weird trends that convince me that those games are not balanced. So when we talk about Infinity being balanced, I have a record of all the games I've played that have kind of showed a bit of a balance. So nonetheless, if I go off of the Book of Grudges, Nomads and Hawk are the armies that I play the most often. Of course, I've had them for the longest, but the past year and a half, the army that I really have a lot of fun playing with is only EI models, so a combined army list where I only bring EIs. Shazvasti I like playing a lot, and Bakunin, of course, mostly because in the past 2 years, so there's 2 sectorials in there, and folks that have played me a lot notice that you play sectorials, but you never run fire teams. That's a whole other discussion, I guess, to have. But Shazvasti is a challenge. There are some benefits that they get that are likely going away in ITS 2015 or in N3. But I like that they're kind of a glass cannon in a different aspect than Ariadna. But Nomads, I guess, is the army that's go-to for me, because when I first started playing Infinity, the 2 guys that I played were Ariadna and the guy that played Pano, and invariably they always had camo, and the Pano player always had a cutter. And this was pre-Human Sphere where, yeah, Pano, it was all shooty. And if you can shoot well, which Ariadna and Pano did, then you typically did a very good job. And this is also where, coming from other games, we didn't have a lot of terrain. We didn't know that you had to have a lot of terrain, so we played on open no man's land. So when the Spaniards joke around about how much terrain the United States uses, a lot of that is heavily influenced by the early genesis of Infinity being in the Detroit area. We're going to pack the tables with terrain. And then I guess that kind of set a bit of a trend. And then, so nonetheless, being a Nomad player, I couldn't outshoot Pano and I couldn't outshoot Ariadna. So I really explored the whole, how can you not have to shoot and win? So I went to a lot of hacking. And then when Human Sphere came out and some of the new units from Paradiso came out for Bakunin, it just made hacking a hell of a lot more fun. And so naturally, when we got the leaks for the new hacking rules for N3, myself and Dave Sealy, aka Cervantes, had a massive squee moment.
Excellent.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that said, is there? I could almost guess with the scream of excitement for hacking rules. What's probably your kind of your go-to, like when you start a Nomad list, you're like, okay, I'm putting that guy in, or is it even like that? Do you have a guy that you're like, yes, I'm taking this, or female because it's Nomads? Am I taking this and then other stuff?
Well, so I play Bakunin a lot. I don't generally play general Nomads a lot. The Intruders always felt like a crutch to me, so I didn't include them a lot. So when Bakunin came out, they didn't have a Riot Girl, so they didn't have MSVs, and it was fun to play without MSVs. And then because I liked hacking a lot, the Reverend, before, I used to always use Interventor, and then when the Bakunin came out, I would use the Reverend Custodier. So now if I make a list, there's always a Reverend Custodier. And for the better part of a year, it was fun. Most people have caught on now. I like the Mobile Brigada a lot. I always have. I like the multi-rifle because early on, pre-Human Sphere, Pano had access to a lot of multi-rifles. Not many other factions did, but the Mobile Brigada did. Everyone always complained about the tax on multi-rifles, but multi-rifles were a wonderful weapon, and only the Mobile Brigada had it. So a Mobile Brigada and a Custodier. Then ITS this year, the previous year in ITS, if you brought Bakunin and you had a Custodier, everyone immediately was like, that's your LT. I mean, and then so I just played the game as like, yeah, you guys know who my LT is. And then at Gen Con this year, it was wonderful because it worked, but now everyone's wise to it. Both John Jungen's Blood God and Wax from New York, when we played in the Invitational Tournament, I had a Mobile Brigada and a Reverend Custodier, and they both assumed that the Reverend Custodier is my LT, but the Mobile Brigada is my LT. And they immediately went after the Reverend Custodier, so for the better part of this year, I had used the Reverend Custodier as bait. So, yes, this is my LT, and then set up for, yes, come for my LT. The nice thing is that usually, unless you're playing against Ariadna, goddamn bastards. But yeah, so Custodier and Mobile Brigada, and I usually like to bring a Sin Eater, and everything else is just whatever I'm in the mood for. I mean, playing since 2007, it was always fun with talking with shop with other guys because we did a lot of tournaments in Detroit, and myself and Tim Cummings and Dave Seeley, whenever we'd go to a tournament, we'd be chatting in local forums or on the Infinity Forum, like, what do you think about this list? What do you think about this list? And Tim Cummings and Dave Seeley and I would always laugh. We would make our lists like 5 minutes before the tournament. It was like, these are the models I have. This is what I feel like playing. But so I guess the Custodier and the Mobile Brigada have become the go-to units, and they did serve a decent function for ITS 2014.
Okay, excellent. So I'm going to kind of poke at something you said a minute ago, and that's you don't like fire teams. Did I hear that correct?
Yes, I don't particularly like fire teams. So I was in Spain last week. It was fun. And Carlos and Fernando wanted to have a team game. Dimitri from Russia was in town too, so he and I teamed up, and he had a fire team. Fernando wanted to play Vanilla Ariadna, and Carlos played Aleph, and he had a fire team. And Dimitri and I were talking, and I was playing generic Nomads because I had access to Studio Painted Minis, so of course I was going to take access to that.
Fucking why not?
Just, of course. So, but Dimitri was asking, like, you're not taking a fire team. This doesn't make any sense. Why would you not take a fire team? And Carlos brought a fire team. I couldn't really answer the question, and as we played the game, Carlos had a fire team of Myrmidons, and I had a Prowler. And I looked at the table. They had taken first turn, and I had taken second turn. We had taken second turn. On our second turn, I looked over at Dimitri, and I said, all right, I couldn't answer your question why I don't like fire teams. Watch the next 5 orders I spend, and this is exactly why I don't like taking fire teams. And so ran a Prowler around the corner and heavy flamered all the Myrmidons. And it completely disrupted everything about that. And the scenario, Carlos had made a very random scenario, just occupy a central building, have the most models in it. And for that scenario, a fire team is nice, I guess, but for a lot of other scenarios, a fire team is beneficial. But what I have found playing a lot of ITS missions is that when you bring a fire team, you lose a lot of flexibility and maneuverability. And I like being able to maneuver very easily with no baggage. So fire teams to me feel like baggage. You have to worry about 3 or 4 or 2 other models. And I've just become accustomed to, I need this model to do this, and having a fire team, you limit your flexibility because you're concentrating your forces in one area to the benefit of shooting. But in ITS, I mean, there's a lot of strategies or schools of thought that, well, you can use the fire team as a vehicle or a transport mechanism for bringing a specialist into range. But I've just never, I don't know, it might just be more of a play style, and I just, for whatever reason, it just feels limiting. You know, you're going to invest a third of your points, maybe a third of your SWC just into a fire base, and it has its moments, but I prefer to have more flexibility.
Sure. I mean, the 10-inch chain rifle, 10-inch heavy flamethrower template is yeah, pretty devastating. I would have to agree. So we've kind of heard a little bit of what's coming out in third. What are you looking forward to from what we've heard? What are you looking forward to playing in 2015 for ITS?
Two things that have me super excited about N3 are the command tokens and hacking. So there's been a lot of hope for that. We've known for the past couple of years that Infinity is going to have a new edition, and when that new edition comes out, whether it's a complete reboot or if it's just a cleaning of the rules, it's going to happen. And so there's always been discussions online and amongst friends and amongst folks when we're at conventions that we really hope that N3 streamlines things without dumbing the game down. And it's only going to be hopefully maybe a month and a half before we see the proof in the pudding, but clarity seems to be coming, but now they're adding these elements in that add a whole new tactical dimension to the game. So command tokens, to me, so I'm an avid board gamer. I play a lot of board games here, and I really like the brain burners, the games that are like 6 hours long, that you're doing a lot of management. But the command tokens, from what we've seen, look really awesome because it's a new mechanism of managing that allow tactical flexibility, but it doesn't look to be something that's going to bog the game down, or slow the game down. So that has me really excited because it's an exploration into new tactical abilities, new ways of managing realistically how 10 guys would approach a battlefield in a covert style or a fast response style. And then in addition to that, because you've heard, I've already talked a lot about how much I love hacking, this whole new hacking element comes in, and it's going to be a new game within a game. And a lot of, if you have talked to game theorists, that having games within games can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. So from what we've seen from the hacking stuff is that just a little bit is that, well, hacking is definitely getting expanded, but it looks to be a lot more simpler in terms of how it's approached. There's going to be a lot more things that are going on, and it's staying true to the whole design approach of don't have special abilities associated with particular troops, just have a lot of special abilities in general, and then align troops and align abilities to those mechanics so that you're not, it's, I don't want to call out specific games, but there are other skirmish games where a lot of special or exception to rules are tied to a specific unit, so it becomes a mode of memorization and a mode of memorizing combos and stacks. For Infinity, you don't necessarily have to do that, which is really nice. So some players don't like it because they like to find combos, and I'm not one of those players. I like to be able to, okay, we know everything that units or how the game can work. I don't need to know exactly what your list is. Just, okay, I don't need to memorize all these combos. I know by just core mechanics and by core abilities what your threat is or what you can possibly do, and then we can negotiate during the game how to play that game. But the nice thing about it is, opposed to games that are built on combos, is typically now you're playing a game where how good are you at memorizing, how good are you at exploiting combos, as opposed to what's your mood, what kind of a player are you, what kind of what's your modus operandi, and now you're playing more against the human brain rather than exploits or mechanics. So the command tokens and hacking, to me, from what I've seen, are affording players more of this. I have more things disposable to how my brain is going to try to manufacture how we're going to approach this game, rather than did I find an exploit that you don't know about. So it's not allowing for the game to be distilled down to like a power combo. So command tokens and hacking.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. And for folks that don't know, Joseph Hill is the Kwisatz Haderach. Some folks have made mention that Carlos Boistra is the Kwisatz Haderach. That's a lie. He's an imposter. It is Joe Hill. And the Southwest United States know why.
Whatever. So that kind of brings us to our next topic. Tournaments in 2015. Yeah, man. So So there was the dire states in Amarillo that happened, was fucking amazing. And then you put on the Burke. I'm gonna mispronounce it. Burke Blitz.
Burke Blitz.
Yes, it was a ton of fun. I got to play in that one. And here in about another week and a half or so, we got another Dire States kicking off down in Baltimore. So yeah. 2014, man. Let's talk a little bit or 2015. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up in March, maybe.
Maybe, you think? I hear something's going down.
I hear a rumble.
Oh, you hear that, gentlemen? A little chittering in the grass. It's coming.
That's right. It's gonna be here before anybody knows it. I'm super fucking excited.
Oh, we can cuss? I've been holding back on curse words. I feel wrong.
Yeah,
now.
dude. No, this will be. This will be edited. We're gonna put TVMA before I start talking, because I get really passionate about it at Infinity, so curse words tend to fly out of my mouth maybe more than they should. So be it. But yeah, so March is what we're planning, correct? For Rumble 2015.
Yeah, and we're trying to. So what we're trying is something kind of new. I don't know if it's necessarily new, but it's just in the spirit of how Infinity has been for the past couple of years. Very community, very bro-oriented. So Rumble last year was a genesis of an idea between you and Dan, and then it caught fire, and then we had a couple other guys jump in and provide input, and then nobody was, trying to, take claim for, who did what, but it was there was a lot of work associated with that, and that's also true for Gen Con. I want to make this crystal clear. I'm like a really bad singer in a good band when it comes to Gen Con. I'm just in front of the stage and everybody sees me, and they don't see all the work that goes in the back. So that is also true of Rumble for this year. So you, me, and Brandon had a meeting. Dan's going to be involved. Tom's going to be involved, in the whole spirit of the Southwest has turned out to be a fucking killer place to make friends and play Infinity. So we're going to make sure that all of us are uniting together to make sure that Rumble this year is going to be kick-ass.
I'm in love with this. I must say, I'm in love with this. So is New Mexico planning another Dire States as well?
I don't know. We're real. New Mexico's very shoot from the hip. We have a small little convention here that you came to last year, and we still haven't decided what we want to do. I can't make it this year. I've got other things, but we've had a kind of a minor explosion in popularity for Infinity. Infinity is probably as big, if not bigger, than 40K right now.
Wow.
And so there's a bunch of guys that can handle Infinity. I don't do demos anymore. It's strange. We've had 15 new guys in the past couple of weeks since Gen Con, and I haven't demoed a single one of them. Other guys are just demoing. It's kind of, we've reached a critical mass where it's just rolling. Guys are coming in. I mean, some of them are stable players, some of them are casual players. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, because right now, I mean, the way Burke Blitz happened last year was Ethan Pearson, a.k.a. Snowball. Yeah, hey, you're going to come. Amarillo guys, hey, if he's going to go, we're going to go. Colorado guys, hey, if they're going, we're not going to miss out on this. Let's go down. So Burke Blitz, that's why we called it the Blitz, because it was just a random thing like, yeah, let's just all storm it. But that's not the way Rumble is. So we'll cross that bridge after we pass Rumble. So for right now, the intent is to build off of what you and Dan and others accomplished last year, which is bar none the best, and I need to emphasize best, tabletop gaming event I have ever been to in my entire life.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, it was. I was so excited to meet everybody And that's kind of why I've decided to do this. Is as I've seen faces and I've judged. Well, I judged. I'm not judging you, right? So I've seen faces, and I want to get to know the Infinity community more. So that's the point of this whole interview process. So I have to ask. So there's two more questions. One of which, because people may be curious, as I am, are you wearing an apron?
Me? Yeah, I am.
Okay. It's just curious. It was like a Dexter thing.
Oh no. So it's I've had this thing for over 10 years. It's I used to work at Ford Motor Company, and I had to do a 2-week rotation in the fuel tank assembly plant, and there's hot flying plasma and sparks flying everywhere. So they give you this denim apron, and they give you denim sleeves and all that. I just kept it, so now it's my hobby apron. The past couple of weeks, I haven't been painting a lot. Right now, I'm currently working on a Deathstroke helmet cosplay for my buddy Chad. So I was out slush casting right before this interview.
Badass.
Plastic flying all over the place. So yeah, I am wearing an apron. This is typically what I'm wearing when I'm building terrain.
Makes sense, man. The last would be what kind of information or what would you say to a new player? What's the one thing either that you see new players do incorrectly or that you would like to see them do correctly? What's that one thing?
Well, first of all, get ready to frickin' have a balls out good time and have friends all automatically set up for you across the nation, because the Infinity community, once you get into it and once you start getting acclimated to it, there are friends everywhere. I mean, so I do a lot of travel for work, and everywhere I go, there's usually someone like, oh, you're going to be in town, we should meet up. Never met them, never seen them, maybe seen them post once or twice, and every single time we have a couple of beers, we go out, we hang out, and it's just, I mean, it's astonishing how many cool people you meet just through the hobby. So one thing is that I like to let people know is, like, yeah, you're not just getting into a tabletop game, you're getting into a community of some really awesome people. That aside, when you're playing the game, leave all your baggage from previous games, just leave it at the door, because things are going to change. It sounds a bit cliche and it sounds a bit kind of jingoistic now, but it isn't without truth. So get ready for a new kind of game, get ready for a new kind of experience when you're playing. It facilitates a hell of a lot more cinematic, joking, jocular kind of, and just be ready to stay involved in the game. I mean, one of the main reasons why I got out of 40K immediately was I remember playing a game with a guy, and it was my turn, and he stands up from the table and says, I'll be back, I'm going to go to McDonald's and get some food. And I thought, what, you're going to leave? And he's like, yeah, don't worry, you'll be done with movement by the time I get back. And sure enough, he left. Half an hour later, he came back, and I was finished moving. You know, like, he had it timed perfectly, and I was like, this can't have this. I'm not coming out to play an empty seat. But in Infinity, it was still
yeah.
How many times and laughs I've had playing the game. So from the mechanic, there's basically 3 things from N2 or 2nd edition. We'll see how it changes in N3. 3 things you gotta just, if you get these things straight, you're good to go for the long run. How an order pool works, how the anatomy of an order, and how to determine face-to-face or normal roll, and how, you resolve that. Those 3 things, if you can get those 3 things down, then you're 85% of the way there. And there's a lot of new players that come in, and whenever I give a demo, I mean, there's a lot of discussion. Do you demo at 150 points? Do you demo at 300 points? I've demoed at 300 points. I just throw down models, and people are like, you know, they might say, you can't demo at that many points. It doesn't matter how many points I have on the table. We're only going to play 1 round, or we're going to play 2 rounds, and there's just 3 things that I want to teach. I want to make sure that these guys get through their head. How you build your army, and then how the order pool works. 2, how the anatomy of an order, how you declare an order, and how the reactive order works, and then how do you resolve based on what you've done. Those three things. Everything else is, don't worry if, camo, you'll find this out later. MSBs, all these little things, don't worry about that. Just you have these three things locked down. You're 85. So many players from demos come back and they're super excited because they want to go and explore the game a little bit more. And they'll come back and be like, I don't understand how this works. And it's like, okay, do you understand how the order works? Do you understand how the resolution works? Yes. So then it makes it so much easier to talk about how you resolve camo and all that once they get all that down. And a lot of players, I've seen a lot of players that come in and they get those three things right off the bat. And I've run a lot of tournaments, and there's been a lot of players where they come in and are like, I want to play, we'll jump into the tournament. And they're like, well, I've never played the game before. Well, here's a quick demo of this, how we can do it. And they play their first games in a tournament, and they get that, and then they immediately become good players. And then the players that don't get that, it's kind of like, well, you're going to want to take time to study that. So three things: order pool, the anatomy of an order, and how an order is resolved after all declarations are done. Three things, and that's it.
Fantastic. Well, good sir, I will have to cheers to that.
Cheers, Paul Moore.
Bam. And with that, I appreciate you taking some time out of your plastic making of a Deadpool head, and taking some time out to talk.
Deathstroke, get that straight. Sorry,
dude. I'm trying to be a nerd. I'm not quite there yet.
No, me and Dave have an ongoing fight on who's cooler, Deadpool or Deathstroke. I'm the Deathstroke guy. He's the Deadpool guy. Anyway, yeah, man.
And I'm the guy with the dog in this fight.
Yeah.
Cool.
Anyway, cool idea. Can't wait to see some other guys' interviews and see some of their backgrounds and hear some of their stories. Because that's part of the joy of being in the Infinity community, man, because there's some really cool-ass stories out there of how people got involved in Infinity and what they do with it. And, yeah, man.
Sweet. Well, this concludes our interview. I appreciate it, sir, and we'll talk to you here. At the very least, we'll talk in the next couple of weeks, and then we'll see you in March.
Yeah. Hell yeah, man.
All right.